Hello there, all you space travelers. Today's subject is No Man's Sky, black holes. Really mystical type ways of travel through this galactic universe. You're going to find out why I eventually took this was because I really had no better way to get to where I wanted to go. And so I was already pretty much out in no man's land, so I thought, well, what's the worst that can happen? But before we get involved in that, we have to take a step back and I have to refresh where I'm at. Last time on Lost in Space, I jumped through a portal and I was warped to this strange planet. All of a sudden, a cryptic message started counting down. I then started picking up glyphs. I got distracted. I found a black hole. I was out in Never Never Land. Discovered I was 1.4 million light years away from my home planet. Decided to go to a base station. Couldn't warp through. Found a portal. Tried to warp through. Could not. Here I am pulling the throttle back. The green line represents where I'm at in this game. I'm pulling back on the throttle to try to see if I can't see where I need to go. I cannot. I keep pulling back. I keep pulling back. I cannot see anything. Guys, where am I? The journey back begins. So when you're nearly 1.4 million light years out, and there is no warp station that you can warp from, your best bet is to just take a black hole. Obviously, there's no guarantee when you take a black hole where you're going to wind up. And through this course of taking black holes, there's no guarantee, and 9 times out of 10, your spaceship is probably going to take some damage. So, but the good thing about taking a black hole is that you'll see unique things. You'll see very unique worlds that are probably far different than where your home base is at. Here's where I demonstrate, my ship is taking damage. And part of the problem with taking black holes, you go to repair your ship, go to repair your spaceship, and you go through another black hole, it's just going to get damaged again. But one thing that I did find the best way to go about it, if you're going to go through a bunch of black holes, your best bet is to at least repair your shields, and you definitely want to have at least 3 shields on your ship to minimize damage as much as possible. The other thing that you definitely want to have is you want to have the three upgrades to your warp drives, because that will give you the maximum amount of light years that you can warp to. It'll also minimize how much fuel you're going to use when you do warp. So you definitely want to keep that in mind too. And above those 3S warp drive updates, you definitely want the emerald, the indium, and I think there's one more warp drive, and those basically give you the ability to warp to red. I believe it's red, blue, and maybe white stars, I forget, but you definitely want those upgrades too, because it gives you further warp drive capability. And somebody commented on one of my videos saying that if you put these add-ons to where they're touching one another, that you get more of a boost. And so you just want to realize that each individual S or B or C or A upgrade, each one of them is different. And so the ones that aren't giving you as good bang for the buck, then just delete those ones out and keep the better ones. So that's something that you want to pay close attention to. This is another black hole that I warped to. And I can tell you, in my experience, it really doesn't matter which black hole you take. I was beginning to think that maybe some black holes are better than others, but in my experience, it really doesn't matter. You can see here I'm still 1.3 million light years out, a little over that. And so, when you select one, basically, my biggest thing is time. I tend to select the ones that are closest to me and just go to them. If I can get there in one warp, and then I was also, as you can see, I was selecting making sure that the mission that I was selected on is pointing, where I want to go before I go through the black hole. But that didn't seem to make any difference. It just seemed to just warp me anywhere, really. And so here I just show, that I'm just warping through one black hole after another, trying to get as close as I can. I'm still at 1.374 miles at this point, or 1.37 light years at this point. And so I'm just, warping through these black holes, as much as I can to try to get to where I want to go. Here's another one. And looking back how many I went through, it might have been, I don't know, maybe 6, 7, 8, 9. I really don't know. I'm just warping through them like left and right here. And it's because I got my warp drives up to where I could travel, I think on average about 600 light years per warp. Sometimes I would be able to warp upwards of, I don't know, maybe 800 light years, low end, depending on how planets are situated. This is another warp. I was actually warp driving through space for a time because I had gotten down to like 300,000 light years from where I was at, so I started warping. But it really didn't matter, because it seems to me I took this black hole and it dumped me back out. And so I got kind of pissed with myself because I'd made some progress getting closer, and then it dumped me back out. And so there's a few of them that I didn't videotape. Here you can see that I finally managed to get within 70,000 light years. So from this point on, I don't take any more black holes, because my mind is if I take a black hole, I'm just going to get dumped further out, or God knows where they're going to dump me. And so at this point, I'm just warping. And and I've got my warp drives all tuned up to where I'm averaging usually anywhere from 340 light years all the way on up to like maybe 6, 7, 800 light years per warp. And here you can see that I finally get back close enough. You can see off to the left that my home base is like right there. I'm not very far off by this point. And so I'm just following the charted course and get back to my base. And the biggest issue is that I get back to my base and things aren't that great, because once I finally do get back, everything shifts. Because the bases that are there are imaginary. It's just showing where the base used to be, but the bases are all gone. And I almost think, because I'm getting like cryptic messages and all kinds of weird stuff, and my goal in giving you these examples isn't really to like give away like mission breaking type things, because you really need to play the game to get the full gist of it. This is just to try to help you get back in the event that you were to get lost in space and want to find your way back. But at the end of the day, I don't take, initially I was kind of somewhat bummed about it. I get back there and find out that my base is gone and I'm going to have to rebuild everything. But it actually has turned out to not be that bad, because I'm basically I've basically rebuilt my base at a portal on a planet over in this system. And but here coming up, I'm going to touch base on what I think might have happened. So if you don't want to see that, then you're probably best off turning off the video now and going off and doing something else. But if you want to watch and see what's happened to me in this situation, and I believe it's because of all the portal stuff that I was trying to do and trying to punch in just any address. But if you don't want to see that, because here I bring in my freighter. My freighter is actually fine, and there's no problem with my freighter or any of my fleet. Everything's fine with them, but I find that it was weird that I had to bring my fleet over. So out of all the planets over in this system, this is the most likely candidate as being my original home planet. And one thing that's striking is, number one, there's very little water, and my original base planet had water, but it didn't have all these divots in it. And so it almost looks like this planet was pelted with asteroids or something, because there's a bunch of divots in the planet, like it got hit by asteroids or something. So it's very strange in that regard. And obviously, I really don't know what happened, but I'm just cruising around, just trying to look and see if I can see anything that looks familiar, and nothing really looks familiar. And seeing all these divots, I mean, it looks like asteroids hit the planet. So I thought that was kind of weird, but I thought I'd share that in the event that you want to see what happened to me. And so then there's this planet. Now, there was one of these types of weird planets over in the system where I was lost in. And so I don't know what the heck this thing is. I've never seen anything like this before. And I start looking around, and eventually I go over there and punch a button. And you'll see the reason why I think something is kind of weird about this. I almost think that the Sentinels, for some reason, are behind this, and you'll see here coming up why I think that. Because I hit this button, and iteration something or other, repeat breach, terminal blinks awaiting input, download data, scenario subroutine, dispatch to intervene in life form designates war something, removal from history, eradicate species, do not return, diagnostic error, data loss error. Now, it's very similar to that portal that I was on in some of the weird error messages I was getting from that. Outside of that, I don't know. So, there you have it. Pretty weird. Brought to you by Mental Vacation in association with Ray TV.